Hi guys, I have finally got something built that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and that is to build a space elevator slash orbital tether that uses only wheels and solar power to run. Now I'm currently in creative, but you're going to see the amount of power this uses is very little. So as I said, this uses only wheels, and this will be able to take you from a planet's surface up to a low G sort of orbit. Now, these won't be able to take you all the way out of, say, a big planet's atmosphere. The main problem you have with that is, for example, this planet, you would have to go up, like, I think about 40, this is the starting planet, you have to go up about 40 kilometers to actually be completely out of the gravity. But once you get to around about the 20-kilometer range, you stop being able to actually build in one single structure. Now, going up on top of a mountain could maybe take that out a little bit further, but there is a limit on what you can do. But it can take you up to the point where you at least would be in a very low gravity orbit. This one here that I've built, this only goes up 12 kilometers. I built one over there with slightly bigger rails, and that goes up to 15 kilometers. Well, I'm going to show you how to build this, but first of all, let's do a quick demonstration. So I'm just going to jump on here and press P, take off the parking brake, and as you can see, it goes up here. There's going to be a little bit of a wiggle at the early meters per second, at about 15 to 35 meters per second. Seem to have a little bit of a wiggle, but once you actually get up to speed, it's very stable. And here we go. Right, we're now approaching 6,000 meters. This is where you will start having your gravity drop off at 6,000 meters here. And it's also about this point where you can't actually have your helmet open. You'll start taking damage. But as you see, that gravity is dropping down very quickly. And by the time we get 12 kilometers, it will be down to, I think it's like 0.53 is where this one goes. So I'll bring this video back in there. Okay, so we're starting to approach the end of this track here. We can actually see it in the corner here. And what I can do is I can just press P for the parking brake really close to the end of the track. So what I'm going to do is I'll do this here. I'll leave it as late as I think. Here we go, about there. As you can see, it stops very quickly. And for going down as well, it's very easy. Just literally take your parking brake off. Sometimes it will sort of slow down, but then you can just let it free fall if you give it a little bit of a nudge. And there we go. Like I say, it does wiggle around a little bit, but it doesn't do any damage to the tracks. It just has a little bit of a wiggle. And as you can see here, it is speeding up, it's speeding up, and then it will just free fall down. And at high speeds, it's very, very stable. And at the bottom, once again, I can just press the parking brake. And you can do that within 100 meters, which is what I'm going to do. Right, here we go. So we're inside 1,000 meters here, and just get this down just under 100 meters, and I'll press the button. So here we go, 200, 100, button. As you see, it stopped really quickly. And one of the things I really like about this is that the parking brake doesn't quite completely stop it on the way down, but you've got the wheels there. It just sort of slowly stops. I think that's so cool. It's not intentional, but it looks like it's intentional. So that'd be really cool if you built one of these and someone looked at it and went, "Oh, that's really cool the way you stopped that." Yeah, I totally meant to do that. I shouldn't have given that away. I should have said, "Yeah, I totally meant to do that. That was some awesome setting there. I'm not going to tell you how to do." Right, okay. Now, this one is the automated version. I'll explain how it works at the end of the video, and there will be a timestamp in the description for if you just want to see the automated version, if you go and build this and you want to look at that afterwards. But in this one here, all I need to do is I just jump on here. Right, I'm going to press the upwards direction and sit on my seat. And just watch ourselves go out the atmosphere. Awesome view. It's even better if you've got the graphics on max, but I've got them a little bit low at the moment just to make sure that, I can record. Right, we're approaching the end of the tether here, and what we're going to see is this will actually stop really quickly. Should be, yeah, there we go. You see, it just stopped so quickly there. This one here, this system here is done with a sensor, and essentially it detects a small ship that's actually inside the tether there. That's not the ideal setup for it. Ideally, you would be using a remote control, but unfortunately, at the moment, the remote controls don't go above 15 meters per second when you're within a planet's gravity, which is a real problem because obviously that would take forever to get up. I mean, it took me a couple of minutes to get up this high. You can imagine that at like 1/6 the speed, basically. Yeah, not fun. But anyway, but this is a workaround, and we'll just set this to go down, and just sit down and enjoy our journey all the way down. This still gives me the willies when I'm sitting on this and I see it sort of approaching the ground so damn fast, and it's like, oh god, would it stop? But it does every time, luckily. There we go. And then it will do the same thing, is it will just sort of gradually come to a halt. I still think that's so cool. Right, okay, so let me show you how to build these. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to build like a copy of like a 1 kilometer stretch of rail, just for me to so easily throw stuff down. So I'm just going to put this down here, and I'm going to build a 8 block 3x3 thing there. And then what I'm going to do is going to multiply it up. Now each block is 2.5 meters. So that means I need 4 of these for 10 meters. There we go, that's 10 meters. And then I can take this up to 50 and then just sort of take up as where I need to go. I appear to have lost track of the count as I'm doing this, because I'm at 800 meters there. I'll just put a 500 meter section on top of it. So, or an 800 meter section as the case may be. So, slightly bigger rails than I intended to build. But anyway, those will do fine. Also, on a note of this, the reason I've done 3x3 rails is because there are only 8 blocks per stack on the rail. That means that you are using the least amount of resources to get the most amount of stability. For example, those 5x5 over there, each one of them would be 16 blocks per section. So one of those rails per section is the same as 2 of these rails per section. So yeah, this just seems to be the most efficient way. And the idea is to build something here that could potentially be used in survival. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this here, and I'm just going to put one of these down. There we go. Now, a little bit up from the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some blocks out. I'll take them out 3, and then from that there, I'm going to take them out 3. Now, I was going to color code these to make it a little bit easier to see. There we go. That should be a little bit easier to see. So that's where you want to be starting to build from here. 3 out there, 3 along. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put down some wheels. And we're going to use 3x3 right suspensions. Now, it doesn't matter what suspensions you use. It's just that I know with this way here, I know how to set it up. And I know that it works. And I also know what I need to invert and what I don't need to. Because you're building things on the back, you kind of have to play around. Okay, so when you build this, what you're looking for is you're looking for the suspension facing downwards and inwards like that. And your wheels should be aimed like this. So any wheel you put on here, you should be seeing the wheel about in the middle there. It should just slightly overlap on the left. And if you look at the block for the actual suspension, it should always be lined up with the edge of the column or the rail. And there should be a 1 gap out. So for example, we do that. Actually, we can't really see that because the wheel's in the way. We do it here. As you can see, there should be a gap out there from the edge. Right, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to give a 3 gap, so 1, 2, 3, and then we're just going to put another one here on top of it. So we're going to have a 3 gap between them. So this will be like a 5 section there. And I'll do that up 4 times. There we go. That's the kind of gapping you want on there, and I've got a section of 4 there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a group of these out by 4 here. I'm just going to put a control seat here. Using a flight seat just makes life a bit easier. So I'm going to put my flight seat here. And I'm just going to start naming these up as I do them. So the first 4 of these, I'm going to call them Group 1. And that's just going to make it easier later on for us to figure out which ones go where. Right, so at this point here, we now want to line up the other rail. So at the bottom of this one here, I'm going to go out by 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So obviously that'd be going to the centre of there, and then 2 out again for where the other wheel would be. Now I'm just going to build a little 8x8 base there. So 8x8, 3x3 base. And I'm just going to paste another rail on top of this. There we go. And now I'm just going to build our second set of wheels here in the same orientation. There you go. As you can see, this set of wheels here, once again, you're always looking for that curved bit down and inwards, and you should have nice symmetry here. Right, so I'm going to call them Group 2. There we go, got Group 1 and 2. And now I'm just going to basically go out from here back to the centre. Actually, we can do it from here. So we're going to take these out another 3. This should be out 2 from here. Yep. And then we're just going to do the same thing here. Just going to take these all the way up to the top. In fact, I'll just do the line across. There we go. And now I'm just going to line these ones up. So once again, I'm just going to do them in groups of 4. So let's get these orientated right. So There we go. So I'm put 4 this way, 4 that way, and obviously group them up. Right, that is all 4 sets of our wheels there. We've got 16 wheels on there in total, and that is the only ones that we're actually going to be putting any propulsion on at all. So that's why we want the groups on those, because we just obviously need to figure that out. Now from this point here, we want our side wheels, which will basically make this self-steer and stops it potentially coming off of the rails here. So from 3 out here, so 1, 2, 3, we're going to start taking, we're not going to do that, well, I just did there. Okay, we're going to start taking blocks out like this. And we're going to take it out to the point where this is 2 out from here. You see, okay, so that's 2 out from the rail there. And then from this point here, we're going to go in by 2. And now when we place this down, this should basically look the same as when we put the other ones down. So we've got the suspension pointing inwards, place that down. Yep, and that suspension should be lined up with the edge of this. It is. And there should be a 1 block gap, which it is. So that just means we're not going to clatter into that. Right, and now I'm going to replicate that all the way down. There we go. And just to double check, you should always have at least like the outside block of these wheels should be looking like it's lined up with the middle of the rail here. There we go. And now I'm going to do that on the other side. So once again, take this out from 3 back. That just means that these wheels won't potentially clatter into these when they move about. Okay, now we want that to be 2 out from the edge of the rail. So if we took that in, that would be touching. So that's where we want it there. And now we place down our block here. There we go. Right, and now take this all the way down. There we go. That is all of our wheels aligned as we want them. We should have 24 in total. Right, the final thing we need to do to make this work, before we sort of detach it from all of this, is we need to connect it on the outside. So I'm going to go out by 3 here, and I'm just going to take them all the way around and connect it round there. There we go. So that's the absolute minimum there. They just do need to all be connected because we're not going to have any connection in the middle. For some reason, it just doesn't like having a bit in the middle. I tested this out a few times and I thought, oh, that'd be really good because potentially it wouldn't take it. No, not a good idea. It's also not a good idea to try and put wheels in the middle of these. Also, doesn't work well. Okay, so before we do anything else, we just need to make sure that we've got everything lined up the right way. So I'm just going to throw a battery on here. And although we are in creative, if I actually look at this battery, you're going to see it's using only 48 kilowatts output. So obviously 1 solar panel, more than enough to power that. Right, okay, so now what we need to do, we need to get the wheels orientated in the right way. So the way, that's a bit weird. The way we test this out is we're going to grab all of our wheels here. I'm just going to put them in a group called wheels. And I'm going to pull the height offset of these all the way out as high as they can go. And well, it doesn't matter what the speed limit is on them, but we're just going to set it down to about 50. Just so we can actually, enough spin on it. And put power on there. So these shouldn't be touching the rails now. We've got power on here, so if I press forwards 1, we should see these moving. Don't worry about these ones here. Okay, so we just want to make sure that these are actually rolling in a way that will go up. Yep, that's up. That's up. And these are back groups. That's going backwards, and that one was going backwards as well. Okay, so we need to invert the propulsion on groups 3 and 4. And obviously, if you didn't know what the groups were, you could do this individual and things like that, but it's just I've built this a couple of times now. So we're going to invert that propulsion and we're going to invert that propulsion. Now we're going to grab all of the wheels and we're just going to turn the propulsion off. And then we're just going to grab our 4 groups here and turn the propulsion back on. We don't want the side wheels going at all. Okay, now we're going to take the steering down on all of these down to 1%. Just in case you do need to make any adjustments. You don't really want it to be particularly big, but you shouldn't need to. They should self-adjust. Once again, we're going to take the steering off and only put it on groups 1 to 4. There we go. And now we should see. Actually, I'll test this out once I've actually disconnected this from here because I'm getting a weird camera angle. But you shouldn't need to invert the steering, but we will check it in a second. Right. So, now we're at the point where we want to disconnect this from here. And we want to just set our actual height of our wheels. And we want to set all the strengths and things. So we want the power at 100%. We want the strength to 100%. friction to 100%. There we go. And we'll take our speed limit up to unlimited. Shouldn't be a problem. And now what we're going to do is we are just going to take our height offset down to 38.5. Minus 38.5, sorry. So there we go. Now, this appears to be about the best setting I've found, but you might want to play around with it depending on your build and what friction you need and things like that. But that, for this, seems to work well. It doesn't cause any damage to the rails. Right, okay. So, the steering, I know the steering works. You don't need to move the steering around. Now we're ready to disconnect this. Now, this may become a station on its own, or it may become a ship. If it doesn't become a ship straight away, then you need to convert it to a ship. So first thing we need to do is disconnect these rails from each other. There we go. And now we might not have quite such a issue actually looking around. I suspect the camera issue I was having was... There we go. The camera issue I was having was because it's actually connected to a massive rail. Yeah, it's not liking that. There you go. At least we can just do it this way. Okay, so we're just going to do a little test. Are the wheels turning the way they should? Just take the angle up on that so we can see it from a distance. So that was right and that was left. No, it looks like... So I'm pressing right there and they're turning left. So we need to invert all of our steering wheels here. So here we go. So we're going to invert the steering. Right. Yep. And yep. And it looks like that's being replicated on the other side. Yes, it is. Okay. Right. Now we're ready to completely disconnect this. We're going to just take the steering angle down to 1 degree again. There we go. And make sure we've got our height offset right. Yes, we do. Now, we can put the parking brake on here, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to make a difference because once you disconnect it, it just doesn't count. So the first thing we're going to do is just going to disconnect this second one we built here between the three. Oh, sorry, between the wheels. Right. And now, do it this way. Yeah. As you can see, it has converted to a station. Parking brake didn't make a damn difference. And sometimes you can get away with having a block in the middle, but it has caused clang issues in the past. Right, okay, so this should be ready to go. I got a little bit of a bump there. We might need to adjust the wheel height a little bit. So I'm going to pause this. We'll press the parking brake. And the way you test the actual wheel, like the maximum, minimum offset even you need, is just going to gradually bump this up until the point we see ourselves starting to slide down. Right, so there we go. So we're starting to slide. So we put 32.1 centimeters there. There we go. So that is, we're easily getting to maximum speed there. That's good. Braking, not causing too much damage. You are going to have a little bit of damage when it has this wiggle on it. There's not really anything you can do about that, but it shouldn't destroy the rails. It should just give them a little bit of a bump. As you can see, it's just got a little bit of a deformation on the rails there. But there we go. Now you also may have to play around with that height offset. Because, you know, obviously the more weight you start to put on this, the less friction you're going to have, and you kind of do want to have it pushing a little bit against the rails, but you also don't want it to be pushing into the point where it causes damage, which is why what I would do is I would test any design you're going to do in creative first. But as you can see, I started off at minus 38.5 and I just adjusted it to the perfect setup here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this drop down to the ground. There we go. Having those wheels on the bottom is kind of cool as well. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab all of our wheels and I'm going to take the height offset upwards. So as high as it can go. So this is now not touching these tracks. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of fly up and I'm just going to start throwing sections of track onto this. and I'm going to test out at what point we have any, if any, issues. I know for a fact that a 3x3 should easily go up to 12 kilometers, but I'm going to test at what point this can go. And this is obviously a part of designing anything you're going to do, is you do need to test the limits of it. So we'll just see how high I can get this. So I'll bring the video back in once I've done that. Right guys, so I've gone ahead and done a little bit of testing. The absolute limit that it seems to be for using wheels and going up these 3x3 rails seems to be about 16.5 kilometers. Beyond that, you seem to have real issues just because, I don't know what's happening. There's something going on with the physics there. But this is now 16.6 kilometers there, and as you can see, I've gone off without a problem there, and as you can see, this will take us all the way up to the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this all the way up there, and I'm going to start building what's needed to automate this. But as you can see here, we've now got a functional space elevator here. If just, like a couple of solar panels on this, and you would be able to ride this up to 16.6 kilometers. Also, I would say that if you actually take it up beyond this, putting the thrusters on there might not be so much of an issue. The thrusters obviously don't rely on friction directly onto these, and these wheels are more passive than actively providing friction even. You know, so obviously when you've got thrusters on here, you're just going to be using these to guide it. So I would say that if you want to take it up higher, you're probably definitely going to be looking at thrusters. But for the smallest possible size of track, which is 3x3, two 3x3 tracks, 16 kilometers or 16 point whatever kilometers up the top here, that is the maximum that you can do this. I was wrong. It was just about 16 kilometers, as you can see here. It wasn't 16.6. Okay, so 16 kilometers seems to be the sort of maximum that we can go for there. As you can see up here, 0.37 gravity, more than enough to be able to get ion thrusters around here. Okay, so now to automate this, the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to destroy a block here, or two blocks. And then we're going to take a landing gear. Let's find the landing gear, shall we? There we go. Right, so we're going to take a landing gear, and we're just going to put a small ship landing gear here. And on top of that, we're just going to put a block and a cockpit. Right. Now that will register as a small ship, and this is what we're going to use to tell this to stop here. Right, so now we need to go back down to the bottom. I'll freewheel it. Oh, this is going to be scary. Now also, while we're going back down to the bottom, I'll also explain another way to tell if you're going to have any physics problems. I had to play around with the height on this a little bit just to get the sort of the best possible results. And I think I have this out. Let's have a look here. There we go. So I've got it at minus 31.1. It works perfectly fine. If you play around with those things and you cannot get it to go upwards, or you can't hit that maximum speed, you're going to have problems. So if you just literally, no matter what you do, you cannot get it to go up to speed, you've got a physics problem there. You need to reduce the length of your rails. It doesn't matter even if you're going at, like, say, 70 kilometers. That's not a friction issue. That's a physics issue there. It's like, you know, you could increase the friction, and if it just doesn't let you go up, there's a glitch going on there. You need to reduce the size of your rails. But one of the big things will be is, like, straight away, is even if you've got it where you're not seeing, say, maybe much damage, you might think it's okay. If you can't hit that maximum speed, you will eventually cause damage to the rails and explode them. So, yeah, be careful of that. But as you can see, 16 kilometers high, no problem there. And that's enough to take you, like, well out of the gravity, well out of the really heavy gravity, so you could use ion ships up there. Right, okay, so when we get to the bottom, we're going to add another small ship. Okay, so I've just parked this a little bit off of the ground here. This is the point where we kind of want this to stop. Now, I'm going to take our small ship block, we'll take it up a few more from here, just to make sure we're okay. So about here, yeah, this should be good. We'll just take it, just to be sure, we'll take it here. Right, so we'll go in here. Now we're going to build another one of those small ships in here. So we're just going to take a landing gear. Let's try and get this one a bit more centralised, shall we? There we go. And that's our block on the cockpit on top of it. Cool, right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this up a fair bit. There you go. It should be more than 50 above that. Yeah, easily. Okay. Now, to automate this, what we're going to need, first of all, is we're going to need at least 2 big atmospheric thrusters and 4 ion thrusters. You can maybe get away with 1 or 2 less ion thrusters, but a big atmospheric thruster will give you like 4.3 meganewtons. And the ion thrusters will give you at maximum 1.4, but you're going out of gravity. But I find that 4 works fine. Like I said, you can have less. Right, so we're just going to put these large atmospheric thrusters, so just make sure they're nice and symmetrical, and I'll just put them there, and that's fine, that's all we need. We don't need to put any downwards ones on these. Now the large ion thrusters, we're just going to put 4 equally around here. There we go. And now I'm just going to put a small one facing upwards. Just sometimes when you take the parking brake off, it doesn't start to move down on its own. We just want that to be automated. Just to make sure, we'll just have one of these on. Now we are going to need a lot more power on this. Obviously, you could potentially run batteries and you could sort of check that you've got enough power to run this before you set it off. But if you've got the ability to make this, you're going to have the ability to make large reactors. And it's still running off of electricity. It's just not running off of wheels only. It'd be lovely if we could automate the wheels, but unfortunately we can't. Okay, so that's 2 large reactors there. Now I'm going to test if this is enough power to like just sort of keep this level. So I'm just going to turn off our inertial, turn off our parking brake. There we go. It's keeping it level there. And now if I grab these atmospheric thrusters and just set the thrust override on, we should start going upwards. There we go. No problems at all there. Right, let's turn those blocks off. There we go. We'll put that back on. And we will park. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to need a sensor. So we'll put that on the top here. And we're going to need 3 timer blocks. Now we're also going to need a way to trigger these off. So I'm going to put out a set of buttons here. There we go. And I'm just going to put out a seat here. Facing outwards because it looks nicer that way. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to set up some groups. So what we'll do is we'll go onto here. First thing we're going to have to do is going to grab all of our thrusters that are going upwards. So we know these are the large thrusters, and we're going to call these thrusters up. And then we're just going to grab the 1 small ion thruster. Weird, that says thrusters for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, so we're going to grab this 1 small ion thruster, and we're just going to call this thrusters down. There we go. Right. Now we're going to grab all of these and just call these thrusters. There we go. Now we're going to grab all of these. We're going to turn the blocks off. And we're going to put a thrust override to maximum. So we have a look at each of these. We should be seeing that. Yep, there we go. That's good. Okay. Now we need to set up our timer blocks. So we're going to have a timer block. We'll just call it that. There we go. Timer block up. That's the one we're going to trigger to tell it to go upwards, and then timer block down, same. We're going to tell that to trigger off to go downwards. So for the first timer block, what we're going to do is we're going to say set up actions. We're going to toggle our handbrake on our flight seat. We're going to take all of our thrusters, just take our groups here, just thrusters, and we're just going to say toggle block off. So when this timer block goes off, we want handbrake on, thrusters off. Now for our block up, what we're going to do is we're going to toggle our handbrake. And then we're going to say turn the up thrusters on. Go. And now with the down, same thing, just with the down thrusters. So set up actions, flight seat, handbrake on, and thrusters down, toggle block on. Okay. Final thing we need to do in terms of the automation here is we need to grab our sensor. Now we need to turn off everything apart from detect small ships and detect owner. Although obviously if you were in a group or in a faction, you'd want detect friendly as well. We'll turn those off. So we should have small ships, owner or friendly. And now we also want to make sure that we've got this a nice long distance on that. There we go. So within 50 meters, this should detect this. And now we're going to set up the actions for this. The action on the sensor is we're just going to grab our regular timer block and we're going to say trigger now. Now on our button panel here, there we go. Our first one, well, we'll just go set up actions. On the left, we'll say that's left is going down, right is going up. So we want to say block going up, trigger now, and then block going down, trigger now. There we go. Okay. Save this first before we test this. Right. If I press block down, sit on here, if we've got this right, this should stop us quite close to the bottom. There we go. I don't think we even actually got to... No, we didn't even get to where our thing is there. Right, and now we're going to do our... Up, sit on our seat, and enjoy the view. No, I won't do that. I gotta say, I still love this every time I watch this happen. I just think it looks so awesome. Also, seeing those in the distance for some reason really reminds me of Halo. Oh, here we go. Moment of truth. Are we going to launch ourselves off the top of this, or is it going to stop? Woohoo! There we go. And now, oh, what a view. I feel like we need the Aladdin song here. I can show you the world. No, not going there. Okay, so here we go. Right, here we are up at 16 kilometers. Now, for this automation here doesn't need to be done, this sort of timer blocks. If the actual remote control blocks are working fine, all you would need to do is set yourself a waypoint up here, set yourself a waypoint down there, and tell it to go between them on automatic pilot. But unfortunately, yeah, remote control blocks are only going 15 meters per second. But guys, this is a working space tether. Okay, you can't go all the way into space on all the planets, but on a smaller planet, you could get nigh on into space. On a moon, easily you could go into space. But this would also make your life a lot easier. So if you had ships that were up in space, you would not need to go onto a planet. You wouldn't need hydrogen thrusters. You wouldn't need atmospheric thrusters. As long as you had enough ion thrusters, you could come down to a space tether here or space station on top of here, and it wouldn't be a problem. Right, so I know this has been quite a long video. I do apologise, but it's been a lot of information I had to impart. I hope you found this useful. I hope you have fun with it. Catch you all soon. Bye. So I'm sure we all know that YouTube has kind of screwed over us small creators at the moment. If you feel inclined to pressing that subscribe button, I will love your face so hard. So hard. Wait, that sounds wrong. Or does it sound right?